On Friday, November 15th, Netflix and Most Valuable Promotions bring you the highly anticipated heavyweight boxing mega event of the year. Jake El Gallo Paul will go toe-to-toe in the ring against Iron Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet. Don't miss this epic showdown live from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Watch Paul versus Tyson, Friday, November 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, live only on Netflix.
Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Snip, tuck, tuck, fold, crease, tuck, tape.
It's not that complicated, Dad.
Wrap, crease, tape, twist, tape.
Ohio Lottery scratch offs make great holiday gifts. And play Holiday Bonus Millions with a 200 times multiplier and a $2 million top prize.
Fold, crinkle, crinkle, roll.
Plus, you can enter non-winning tickets in My Lotto Rewards for a second chance to win up to 1,000 times the price of your ticket.
Please crinkle, gate, fold, ring and curl, sponge.
The best part, Dad? No wrapping required.
No tuck, tuck, fold?
No tuck, tuck, fold.
Give the gift of fun. Lottery players are subject to Ohio laws and commission regulations. Play responsibly.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to a special episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. The Reds are 5 points clear at the top of the league. They've got a perfect record in the Champions League. January is on the horizon, but before that, there's a multitude of fixtures and challenges to navigate. And who else could we get during this international break but the number one, the renowned and the respected Paul Joyce. Paul, how are we?
Good to join you. So hopefully it'll cover some interesting topics now. So
yeah, absolutely, and quite a bit to get stuck into. And probably the first thing we really wanted to get into the mix with Paul is Arne Slot, Liverpool, how everything's going at the moment, because we could ask for a better start than 5 points clear at the top, a perfect record in the Champions League so far. I'm guessing everything you're hearing around the club, Arne Slot, his team and everything, is it all just a huge mix of positives at the moment?
Yes, definitely. I think, it's been a remarkable start to the season, really. I think everybody was a little bit unsure of how it would work out. Everybody envisaged a sort of maybe a little bit of turbulence coming out of the Jurgen Klopp era and into something new. Nobody was really sure how it would work, but I think, as you said then, the start that Liverpool have had, has been superb, really. Everything that you sort of hear sort of around the club and what it's like on a daily basis is, as you said, just very positive. A lot of emphasis on challenging the players, improving the players. And I think today's players respond to that. They want to get better. They want to hear feedback on how that they're doing. And one of the sort of phrases that we hear quite a lot from a media point of view is that training is almost like coaching clinics where things that the players are maybe not doing well, that they're giving a lot of feedback on that, and maybe that's to be expected in the early throes of a new manager. It's hard to think back to what it was like now when Jurgen came in. There was probably a lot of feedback in the early days there as well. So I'm conscious of sort of, not in any way sort of denigrating the Klopp era, because that was an unbelievable time for Liverpool supporters as well, and it's I think I don't really like it when you sort of hear things, oh, it's better now. We've got to wait to see whether it's better. It's just it's maybe a different way of doing things now than it was towards the end of Jurgen's reign. So, but yeah, certainly a lot of positivity coming out of the club, and as you said, then you'd expect that given the results, and the results have created the momentum that have given Liverpool a really good platform to push on now when they come back after the international break.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was fascinating what you said there about sort of the coaching clinic, the way training's been described. And I saw the article you wrote in the Times, and it's a great one if you've not seen it, people, about Arne Slot almost having that experience from before with Feyenoord and from his coaching background. It was a great piece, and I kind of wanted to ask you about that. Because it kind of felt like it came out of the piece. Have you got that confidence that as we get towards, maybe you'd call it the business end, the bigger challenges, however you describe it, that Arne Slot's got the right temperament, background and history to navigate us through that?
Well, I think the thinking from the piece stemmed from the sort of parallels that existed between where Liverpool are now and the season Feyenoord won the title under in 22-23. So just a quick recap. It was 2 years ago yesterday, actually, that they beat the Feyenoord beat a team, Excelsior, 5-1. They moved top of the Dutch league by 3 points from Ajax and PSV. And that was the last game before the break for what was the World Cup then. So it was a 2-month break compared to the 2-week break that we're in now. But from that moment, Feyenoord were off the top spot for only 2 days between the November the 13th and then winning the title later that season in the May. And they only lost the top spot because I think it was AZ Alkmaar, another of Arne Slot's former teams, played on the Friday night. Feyenoord were playing on the Sunday, and they went back to the top of the table with a win then. And it was just quite informative. I spoke to one of the journalists who covered Feyenoord at the time over in Holland, and it was just quite informative that he has been through this before. Obviously, I asked him about it at the press conference last Friday, and he was sort of keen to sort of say, well, it's not the same, and the Premier League's stronger. But from his, which I wouldn't expect him to say anything else really, he's going to downplay that. But there's still Feyenoord going up against Ajax and PSV, who are traditionally maybe bigger clubs.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think guiding the team through that situation, there was a point in the second half of the season where they won 13 games in a row. I think that must do something for his confidence and his staff's confidence that they've been through it once. That the methods, that the way that they train, that the sort of take it each game at a time approach worked then, so why should we do anything different now? So for me personally, I do think it will help what's ahead of Liverpool now. I mean, the interesting thing as well, just for context of that season, so they had a 2-month break, and that allowed him to spend a lot of time on the training ground with the squad, which is obviously a big feature of what we're hearing. Obviously, he's not got as much training time with Liverpool because they're playing every 3 days. But that was a significant sort of benefit to him, the length of that break in the season. But when we were speaking about it, he also said that they'd signed 15 new players that summer, so the summer of 22. So to me, that just sort of enhanced the title win in a respect, because that is a lot of players to come in to a club at any one summer, and for him to get his ideas across and to bed his methods in with that many players and win a title within one season, I think, is a real feather in his cap. Whether he goes on and does that at Liverpool, who knows? But I think the point of the piece was that he will feel sort of nothing really to fear over this next, 6 months of the season, that he will be able to draw on the experiences that he had in Holland, and that can only be a positive, because you've got some players who obviously in the Liverpool squad who have won a title before, and I think it was Virgil van Dijk said after the Aston Villa game, the experience of last season when they were doing well up until that first week in sort of April, he was saying that you would hope that the squad would learn from that as well, and what is required to maybe kick on a bit further. So I think all those things put together are obviously positives for Liverpool.
Yeah, no two ways about it. Fascinating. So the backstory and the experience he's got. And I suppose just one more on Arne Slot specifically, if I can, because you mentioned the press conferences, and he seems to have a desire to hold them quite early, usually on a Friday. It's a 9 a.m. start, sort of early doors. We've kind of got a fair sample size of him now, shall we say, from his press conferences. What have you made of his kind of engaging style? Because he seems quite sort of direct, straight down the line, almost some could call it blunt, but he's coming across really well. So what have you made of it personally?
Yeah, I've not found him blunt. I've found him sort of... Yeah, I think straight down the lines, as the expression you used there. I think you might not get sort of loads of sort of sound bites in terms of big headlines, but you'll probably get an insight into what he wants extra from players, sort of which players have sort of made strides behind the scenes, why certain players aren't maybe doing, as well as maybe he would want them to do. So, for example, say last week he was asked a question about Ibrahima Konate and why he's, his form this season basically, and he said that of all the players. He said he's found all the players at Liverpool really sort of invested in wanting to learn and wanting to kick on. But and that's a credit really to the culture that Jurgen created, to go back to the sort of Jurgen time. But he volunteered that he's found Konate, probably of all the players, the one who's most engaged in that and most and is most invested in trying to take a step forward. Obviously, the end of last season wasn't a good one for him, and so I think the press conferences may not be are a different type maybe to what they were under maybe Jurgen towards the end again. But yeah, no, I found him good so far, and he's. I think the timing of the press conference as well probably indicates that he wants to do that first thing in the morning, because then it allows him to have the rest of the day to focus on managing, preparing, and looking after the team.
Yeah, he's talked about that quite a bit, and being 12:30 is his normal training time in a few of them as well. So yeah, we are enjoying everything we're seeing about Arne Slot at the moment. And the next topic we want to move on to, and I've no doubt you've been asked by friends, family, etc., about 86 million times about this. And I know sort of the latest that you'd written is Liverpool are in talks with the big three, Trent, Virgil and Mo. I suppose, is that just almost the latest? Does it feel like negotiations will go on behind the scenes and we've just got to wait and see what happens?
Yeah, very much so. And I think the negotiations have been going on for some time as well. I don't think it's just last few weeks thing. I think that's been the case for some time now, and yeah, as frustrating as it is for everybody who's wants a resolution, in double quick time. The latest is that they're still talking. I mean, everything can change with one phone call. That is the case with contract renewals. I think the Salah and the Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk ones are probably a bit in a different category to the Trent Alexander-Arnold one. Obviously, age is probably a factor with the first two in a way that it's not with Trent. I think it's pretty. I mean, obviously, a lot of the all this is playing out behind the scenes, and I think as Mo's representative said recently, sources close to Salah don't exist. So when anything that you sort of hearing about that, maybe take with a pinch of salt.
Yeah.
But equally, I think it's clear from the bits that we've had off Mo on social media and some of Virgil's comments that they both want to stay. Trent obviously spoke. I think it was last month or about 6 weeks ago about his situation, and he said that would be determined by sort of trophies and ambition. It would be one element of it. So yeah, I think we just have to sort of wait and see how it transpires.
And I suppose with Trent, because as you say, there almost feels a uniqueness because he's in his prime years, which is different from the other two. And in terms of pure value to the club, I mean, you'll have the feeling that the club won't want to let a £150 million asset basically walk out the door for free. Do you think with Trent, it will just come down to ultimately how he sees it, that all sort of the chips are on his side of the table and either take a big renewal with his boyhood club, or if he does ultimately fancy that challenge of abroad and, Real Madrid, whoever it may be, it'll just be his choice ultimately?
Yeah, totally. I think you've summed it up really well. I think I don't think it's about money. I think it's just a case of, what does he want to do at this juncture of his career? I think, sometimes the situation of maybe Steven Gerrard is used, but it's different to Steven Gerrard because Trent has won everything with Liverpool in terms of the Premier League and all the trophies he could want to win. So, yeah, I think you summed it up. You summed it up right there. It'll just be a personal choice as to what he wants to do.
Yeah, and fingers crossed we know which way that goes. And the other two that you alluded to are maybe a slightly different situation. And I don't know if obviously reading this or from sort of the reports, the intimations, there's been suggestions, if you want, or feelings that it could be about length of contract, maybe than wage or the deal, shall we say. Is that your take on it, that the length of contract will play a part with Virgil and Mo?
Early holiday savings have arrived at Tanger Outlets. Discover the best gifts from your favorite brands, perfect for everyone on your list. And stack your savings with up to 70% off, plus an extra 15 to 25% off only during Tanger Style. Save at Polo Ralph Lauren, Old Navy Outlet, Under Armour, Skechers, J. Crew Factory, and more. Hurry in. These early holiday deals last through November 24th. Tanger Outlets. More savings, more cheer.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. Ha. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes and games consoles. Visit libertyshield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
Yeah, I think the length of contract will be part of the negotiations, definitely. I mean, I think if you look at both of them, there's no sign of, as we speak now, the performances that they've given this so far this season, there's no, immediate evidence that the performances are going to drop off a cliff. So in their cases, you can understand why they would be pushing for the sort of length of deals that Liverpool have maybe not given to 30-year-olds previously, both hugely influential players, both contributing massively to what has been a very positive start to the season. So, but I think it's good. I think it would be too simplistic to say that it's just down to contract length. I think it's the financials of everything involved together with the contract length. I think that's going to be what Liverpool are looking at. And what I would say is that while we're all talking about, and we've seen over the past week, in the example of Mo, give him the dough, give him what he wants. But what I would say is that other than Mo's representative and Richard Hughes, we probably don't know what he wants. Nobody is aware of what the figures are. So I think that argument of giving what he wants, it's more complex and more complicated than that, because we don't have knowledge of the details of those conversations. But I think it's too simplistic to say that give him a 2-year deal and he'll sign. I think there's more to it than that.
Yeah, and probably, like you say, a lot of this is just going to be going on behind closed doors, and we can all speculate, but we're not really going to know the detail. And there was a bit that you mentioned then, it strikes out for a lot of people, this sort of 1st of Jan date, because it is the sort of date that they can sign pre-contract agreement with overseas clubs. Do you think Liverpool will have imposed any sort of timeline or deadline on it themselves, that, i.e., if we've not got a resolution by this day, just because it could almost distract or detract from the rest of the season, that they might sort of break off or end negotiations? Or do you think they will just try right up until the last day?
I think that's a very good question. I don't have the answer to it, but I think if you look at the way Liverpool have worked in the past, and how we've all seen the club work in previous years, that they've always tried to, generally speaking, plan ahead, haven't they? So they've always, if we go back to what would we say? I have to get my timelines right now. So if we go back to sort of the summer of 2016, I think they would be pretty sure coming into the new year that Sadio Mane would be the prime target for that summer. And so they've done all the work in advance. And and then they press the button on Sadio Mane. So they're always working to sort of stay one step ahead of the rivals, and that has obviously been very successful, and what formed the rise of the club really from a recruitment point of view. So with Michael Edwards, back at sort of, albeit in the CEO of FSG football capacity, I think they will be working in the background on deals. They can't just all getting the ducks in a row as they wait to see what happens. They can't just let it run on indefinitely. Find out on May the 1st that they're going to lose some people, some players, and then start a process of replacing them. That strikes me as not how Liverpool would work. So I've no doubt that they're probably working in the background now on what happens if X, Y, and Z doesn't renew. And then it comes a point whereby, as you said, nobody knows the answer to this. This is another thing they're not going to publicise. If you don't sign by, March the 30th, we're cutting off negotiations. That's, we're not going to get that information either, really. But yeah, to your point, I think that there will be planning going on now in case people don't re-sign, and that's what you would expect Liverpool to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Fingers crossed we don't have to get to that, but we'll see. And the final one, I did want to ask you about contracts as well, because I know it was your breaking story. It almost feels like a lifetime ago, but Jarell Quansah did his renewal, which was brilliant news. And I know as part of that piece, you had the Big Ibu Konate. That deal was sort of close, or was intimated it was there. And we've heard sort of murmurs, but nothing definite. Is that still your understanding that is expected to get done with Konate?
Yeah, I think it was the last international break, I think. So we're probably a month on from that. And everything. There's no reason to suggest that won't go ahead. Obviously, the decision to try and extend his contract is partly born out of a desire for the club not to be in the situation that they're in now with Van Dijk, Salah and Trent. I think you see the way that he's playing, and for them to approach him, recently has proved quite astute. He knows that he feels wanted. It's his best run of games since he came to Liverpool now, and I think every year you see the sort of affection that the crowd have for him now as well. They recognise him as a big player. So I wouldn't foresee any sort of issues with that. It's just these negotiations take time, but there's no sense that one won't get done. And I think that's the other when you talk about sort of Virgil van Dijk's sort of situation, and his age and what length of contract should he get, X years of contract and stuff. I think what you have to factor in as well with sort of the quality of his performances is also the influence that he's having on somebody like Konate. Even Joe Gomez, who we know he's very close to, that they're friends. For Quansah, in his development, what better sort of role model would there be than to have learning off Virgil van Dijk every day at the club? I'm obviously not saying just give him a contract on that basis solely, but it's another factor when you're weighing up what sort of Virgil van Dijk brings to Liverpool. I think it's not just his sort of performances on the pitch each week. I think we've all seen since he became captain that he's tried to assume extra responsibility. Certainly, and this isn't one of the be-all and end-alls, but he's been very good from a media point of view in terms of he will come out after basically every game and give 10 minutes of his time to all the sort of the local media and national media. So yeah, I think he's accepted the responsibility of being captain. It sits comfortably with him, and I think he's been a help to Arne Slot as well, and the ease with which he's come in and hit the ground running.
Yeah, Konate and Van Dijk have been absolutely sensational. Easily the two best defenders in the Premier League this season. If we could get both tied down, that would be absolutely sensational. And the final topic I'll ask you a few questions on, Paul, and it's important, people, because this is not going to turn into all Joyce says. We're going to be crystal clear on this, and if we don't know, we'll be really clear. There's the old sentiment that you strength, or you reinforce from a position in strength. And with Liverpool 5 points clear at the top of the Premier League, and obviously the way they're going in the Champions League, they didn't get sort of the top target in the summer. Do you think there is a real case with probably the likes of City will strengthen as well in January, that Liverpool need to do the same if they do want to be successful?
I'm always torn on this a little bit, because it's like sort of, I think if I'm going to say, yeah, I think they should strengthen, I think I have to then come up with a name of who they should buy. I think it's easy just to chuck out, yeah, go and sign somebody. I think you need to give a name. Obviously, they tried for Zubamendi in the summer. That didn't come off. There's nothing that I've heard that would suggest that they would go back in for him now, unless there was, Ryan Gravenberch obviously stepped up. He's done really well in that position. I think Liverpool realised that the pressure Zubamendi was under to try and get out of Real Sociedad in the summer. Usually when there's a release clause in a contract and a club indicates that it's prepared to trigger the release clause, usually that should be sort of the beginning of the end of the story and the start of the transfer, really. But in this case, Sociedad made it difficult for him, whereby they said that he would have to go and pay the release clause basically himself, and so force his way out of the club. And he was mindful of how that would look with his boyhood club, and he wanted to go with their blessing rather than being forced to take this step. So I think Liverpool are sort of, understand the pressure he was put under, but I don't get the impression that they will go back and try for him again in January, because I don't think that feels a priority position now because of the way that Gravenberch has performed. And I know people will say, well, what if he gets injured? But, equally, we've not really seen Liverpool as a club react to injuries by going and signing a player, because what happens when the player comes back and is available again? I'm dubious about whether or not, you read bits about, will City go in for Zubamendi because of the Rodri thing? I'm not too sure about that, because, Rodri, I think Rodri said this week he's hoping to come back before the end of the season. So where does that leave Zubamendi when he's fit? How will the landscape for City have changed by then anyway? I don't think he signed a new contract at Sociedad, which is interesting, because on the back of the Liverpool interest, the talks were due to start up, and obviously you've got the link of the outgoing Sociedad sporting director getting linked with Arsenal now. So, yeah, I as it stands now, I'd be surprised if Liverpool went heavily into the market in January. And I think part of that is to go back to May, because is part of it is could be down to the contract situations as well, because you know, we have to assume that at the moment they're going to need in the summer, in terms of incoming. So I think also if you look at the squad, I think it's you know, two players in each position, and two good players in most positions. I mean, what from your point of view do you think that they should strengthen? To throw the question back to you.
Yeah,
5 points clear.
It's a fair question. I mean, the one thing that I think most people will agree on, and I might be wrong when I say this, but as you kind of alluded to, that another midfielder, and you'll have heard the names like Zubimendi, obviously. You'll have heard probably Tchouaméni's been quoted a lot on social media, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Would just be a game changer. There's just that slight concern over Ryan Gravenberch that, he's going to play a season-high minutes if everything goes to plan by some distance. He's not really had this experience. So without that, how does he fare if time goes on? And we do seem super-duper reliant on him. So there was that factor of, is that fair? But also in terms of needs, and probably like you, I don't know about whether City will go for it, but there is that feeling that if they do, we'd respond in kind a little bit. But from what you're saying, all the sort of noises that is unlikely Liverpool will be active this January.
Well, I think I wouldn't be as concrete as that. I think what we've got to say is that I think the buzzword in the summer was that they would be opportunistic. So if there's the right, and I think that word came out in the summer, but I think that's really how Liverpool have always approached January. Really, I think if you look back to the sign of Luis Diaz in 2022, then there was a point earlier in the window that they weren't going to do that transfer. It was only, I think, when I think it was actually Tottenham's interest opened the door, and the price that they had originally been quoted came down a lot. So that was an example of something where you're planning on doing something, and then an opportunity comes up, and you decide to go down a different route. So I think we've got to be mindful that things can always change. And I know that sounds like a fudge, and he's keeping doors open on stuff, and he doesn't, but that is the reality of what Liverpool have done. I don't think they're going to deviate from what has served them so well in recent years and times, even if the personnel has changed, because you've still got people who, with the link to the past, are still involved in the present day operation. So I don't, never say never, but at the moment I think that there's no sort of name out there that certainly, I'm talking myself into a dead end here, but it's, I think you know what I'm trying to say anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, never say never, but we will have to wait and see. And there's nothing sort of imminent or suggesting that January will be a busy period for us. And I suppose the only thing I wanted to ask you, because it kind of answered it there, that there's nothing really moving in January, but as ever, there's always a few names, shall we say, kicking around with Liverpool. Like we mentioned, Zubimendi, we've answered that. Tchouaméni seems to be on the docket. Other names like Marmoush have come up. Maybe Kirkez as a left-back's the other one that's sort of been touted around. Have you heard of, I suppose, anything like you said, Michael Edwards and this current hierarchy do plan down the line and sort of for the future. Have you heard anything in regards to potential move, even if it's a summer one or anything along those lines at all?
I don't think there was any particular strong interest at the moment on Marmouche, I think it is. I think Liverpool have got sort of attackers, a complement of attackers. Not heard anything on Kerkez. I know left back's been, I suppose, the one area of the team where he's rotated maybe a bit more, and there seems to be a slight uncertainty there at the moment. But going back to one of your earlier questions about press conferences and what Slot is like in those, he gave quite an insightful answer here on Andrew Robertson. I think it was before the Brighton League game. It was off the back of the Arsenal performance, which, let's be honest, the response to that was probably a little bit over the top, really. I mean, Saka can get the better of any player, really. True. Just because he scores a goal doesn't mean that somebody's, at the end of the career. But Slot had sort of said with Andrew Robertson that he'd come back for pre-season still with the ankle injury that had affected him at the end of last season and during the Euros, and that he wasn't able to take on as much of the team sort of, or the new methods that he was trying to instill in the team, because he wasn't on the training pitch as much. And then when he came into the matches, he was overthinking what to do in certain situations because he wasn't sure on what Slot wanted him to do, because he'd missed that preparation time. I think from now on we'll see the sort of return of Robertson to top levels, and I think his performance against Aston Villa was a signal of his intent. He spoke after that game, was very sort of bullish about, people doubt. If there's people doubting me, then I'll prove them wrong, and I'll show that I'm not finished. And I thought that was a good interview by him, really, that he's determined to force his way back into the reckoning and won't give up his place without a fight. So, I mean, at some point, these players who have been magnificent servants for Liverpool and have had all the success with the club, there is going to be a point where they need to be replaced, whether or not the left back is something that Eight Nuri at Wolves always gets a mention as well, doesn't he? But checking on that previously, that obviously Liverpool aware of him, but I think in the summer there was also talk about they were going to go for him then and then didn't. So I think we'll have to just wait and see what comes in January.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, never know. And with Liverpool, as you all know, and usually because it's you breaking it, it always comes right at the last minute as the deal's gone. So I'll have to wait and see if anything is breaking on that. And I suppose the final question, because he's right to turn it back to the football rather than just transfers. When we come back after the international break, Paul, I mean, you'll know, like, that fixture list is crazy. Yeah. And the Southampton, it's those two at Anfield I wanted to ask you about. Real Madrid and obviously the City game on that Sunday, especially with the sort of storyline around that, the way the league sits at the moment. Those two are going to be massive games at Anfield, aren't they?
Huge games, and it's sort of funny, isn't it? So back after the last international break, and I think Slot said himself, that this is the fixtures are now going to get more difficult, and he was the one who sort of introduced the fact that the start to the season had been kind to Liverpool, which was unusual for a manager to say, really. Remember when when he said that, it was in the week of the West Ham Carabao Cup game. And he said it the day before the game, and he said it again on the Friday. And it was obviously a point that he wanted to sort of get across for whatever reason. I remember thinking at the time, that's an unusual thing for a manager to say, really, that it's been a gentle start. But then you come back after the October international break and those 7 games in 21 days or however many days it was. And they negotiate that with, 6 wins and a draw, I think, is it? Yeah, I think it was. And then you think, wow, that's a major step forward. And then you come back to the, as you said, the fixtures list now, and it's just another test straight away, isn't it? I mean, I think the good thing is that the Real Madrid game and the Man City game are both at Anfield. I think we've seen in the last few games at Anfield the synergy between the crowd, Slot and the team has stepped forward. Usually I think the bond has felt a lot stronger in the last sort of few games at Anfield.
Yeah.
I think the crowd recognise their role in helping the team and the manager. And I think, you can imagine what the atmosphere is going to be like for both games. We've seen it before, and we saw in the sort of second half of the Brighton game just the effect that the crowd had on the team. And you can probably multiply that a few times by what it would be like for the Real Madrid game. A game in which, let's be right, Madrid's Champions League campaign is not looking how they would want it to. And then you go into the City game as well, and that's going to be a huge game in the context of where we are with the league table. City obviously got a difficult game when they come back. They take on Tottenham at home. So, I think everybody's sort of steeling themselves for a sort of response from City, given the sort of recent performances. So, that's going to be another huge few days. And then you come out of that and it's Newcastle away and Everton away. So it just rolls on and on and on, doesn't it? There's just no let up. But I think that is Liverpool Football Club, isn't it? Every game there's something riding on it, and if there wasn't, then the standards would be dropping. So I think that's another sign of how well the head coach has done since he came on. That there's a sort of enormity around these games straight away, when everybody maybe thought that Liverpool would be in and around 4th place. So I think that there's a lot to look forward to when the club games restart.
Yeah, no two ways about it. And big games at Anfield, and it seems good to almost finish where we started, talking about Arne Slot. And ladies and gents, we have been all around the houses. We've talked Liverpool, Arne Slot, we've talked the 3 with the big contracts, potential for January, all sorts of things. So all it really leaves me to say is, Paul, for the time, for the insight, and for kindly asking or answering all our questions, it is greatly appreciated.
No problem. Thanks a lot.
And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters for Anfield Index.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at anfieldindex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.